So hi, can you just state your name for the record?
My name is Lauren Freeman.
Okay, and what do you do?
So I am half of a podcast called Geek News, where we talk about geek and nerd pop culture, and we do so over a usually local craft beer.
Okay, cool, awesome. Can you tell me a little bit about like how that got started?
Well, like many podcasts, we got started during the shutdown. So March 2020, everybody's stuck in their house. We didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
We had been writing beer articles for this website called Hops News. And I was writing articles showcasing the local craft beers at Disney World. So like Epcot had a festival, you could get Ivanhoe beer there, you get Central 28, things like that. And so when we were all stuck in our house, the guy who runs the website was like, hey, you guys want to do a podcast? What else were we going to do?
Yeah.
We started interviewing local breweries as well as, because we're all over the country. So we've had other Half Brewing on there. We've had Weathered Souls from San Antonio, a lot of big ones and a lot of small ones. We've had Glenn from Ivanhoe Brewing on the podcast before. And so that's been great. We've got to do a bunch of philanthropy through interviewing those breweries as well. We would do local donations when we were talking to these breweries and everything, and that was great. However, me and another guy on the podcast would constantly go off on tangents about Star Wars, the ending of Game of Thrones, very controversial things like that.
Very controversial, yeah.
And the guy, Jeremy, who runs Hop News, is like, you guys need a spin-off podcast. And that's how Hops Geek News was formed. And 2.5 years later, almost 3 years later, we're still doing an episode every week, interviewing comic book creators, brewery owners, doing all sorts of podcasts on our own, doing deep dives into different comic book characters before a movie comes out. And right now we are getting ready to celebrate May the 4th.
Oh yeah, Star Wars Day.
Yep.
Yeah. Are you doing anything like Disney, Hollywood Studios related? Because I know that's big.
I will be at Hollywood Studios on May the 4th.
Nice.
I got to go there last year, and it's so much fun on that day because you feel like you are on an actual different planet because everybody's dressed up, and it's so much fun and a lot of camaraderie.
Yeah.
We'll definitely be going live on the TikTok and possibly the Instagram.
Okay, nice.
Getting lots of fun footage,
Nice. And then, so you mentioned the brewery kind of started with, you said Epcot, right?
Oh yeah.
So it's not food and wine. It's separate from that type of festival that features breweries. What's that called?
Well, so Epcot now has festivals all year. So it goes from food and wine to Christmas. Right now it's Flower and Garden.
Yeah.
And they also do the Arts Festival. And every single one of these are now showcasing smaller breweries.
Okay.
And because I used to hear people be like, oh, I went to Disney and there's, no good beer. And I was like, there is. You just have to,
find it.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I've loved having, I keep mentioning Ivanhoe because they've been doing a lot of beers there. Their Nutcracker beer at the Christmas Festival was delicious.
What is that? Like, is that chestnut or like?
Yeah, it had hazelnut in it, I believe.
Okay,
It was very good, but very high ABV. You got to watch those ABVs.
Yeah. They're good if you want like one and to sip it, but a couple, it gets you going, Yeah. So how did you, because you run it with Matt, so how did you and Matt meet?
So we had both met Jay through the internet. I guess that's how people meet friends now.
I know. As you do.
And he was writing articles about beer as well, and he's from Massachusetts. He's in the Air Force, so he gets moved around a lot. He's in Idaho. He's going to be in Virginia soon. And so we just met through that. And so he was just writing random articles. We were podcasting for almost a year before we met in person.
Really?
And we actually met in person at Disney. He came to do Galaxy's Edge, so we got to have a beer together at Galaxy's Edge. But people would always laugh, you guys haven't even met in person?
Yeah. And you just kind of hit it off.
Yeah. Sometimes you just have that happen.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like if you like beer and nerdy stuff, that's just the key ingredients to a good friendship, to me.
100%, yeah.
Yeah, you can't go wrong. So you talked about like how you kind of merged the Hops News to a Hops Geek News. So can you talk to me a little bit about what's changed since it's kind of become this more geek-centric thing? You go to conventions and all of that. You interview different people. So how did that start, and how did that transition into it start?
Well, when we do the Hops News ones, our focus is beer. We'll do beer news, beer school, interview breweries. And so on the Geek one, we start every episode, unless we're recording early in the morning or something, we start every episode with talking about the beer we're drinking, and we always tie it in.
Sure.
It could be, Tactical is a really great brewery that's in the area, and they have a lot of nice nerd-themed can art.
Okay.
So that's always fun to kind of tie their beer in. They've even had a Star Wars one, it's Untapped.
Yeah.
And so we always talk about our beer at the very beginning, and then we go into recent news. There was Star Wars Celebration came out, and there was so much Star Wars news, and I report a lot on the Disney type news, not report, but hey, you don't need a reservation after 2 for pass holders or something like that, unless it's the weekends at Magic Kingdom.
Oh God, yeah. I hear that's I'm not a pass holder, but I hear that is hectic to try to get in Magic Kingdom.
Oh yeah, Magic Kingdom is a truck.
Yeah. So basically, you find different ways to incorporate the beer into the Geek news.
Yes.
Okay.
And then we're sipping on it while we're talking about news, and then we have a main topic every week. Sometimes it's an interview.
Sure.
We recently interviewed the co-creator of The Boys, Derek Robertson. That was really cool. We've had some Marvel creators on recently, some Star Wars comic book creators.
Yeah.
So it's been a lot of fun, and we've met people I never would have imagined we'd be sitting down talking with. And for any Star Wars Rebels fans, the voice of Vanessa Marshall, the voice of Harrison Dula, will be joining us next week. We're very excited about that. Cannot wait to interview her. So that should be coming out in the next couple weeks.
Nice. And do you have any, I know it's hard to pick a favorite, but do you have any people where you're like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm interviewing them right now?
Oh, well, she's going to be one of them, I have to say. I would say the co-creator of The Boys was a little bit surreal because I've read all the comics and I've watched all the shows. And, just getting to talk to him about seeing his portrayal of what he created on the paper go to the TV, and he's involved with the TV show as well.
Okay.
So to get his opinions on how he's seen these characters go from paper to screen was just really cool to kind of get to hear his personal opinions. And he was pretty funny, too.
Yeah, I love that. And also, you don't always see, the people who created the source material being involved in the adaptation.
Right.
So I think that's really, a nice kind of best of both worlds situation.
100%, yeah.
Yeah. And then you've also been to a lot of conventions or fan events. So can you talk to me a little bit about that and what events you guys have been to in the past?
So I've been going to MegaCon, which is our local convention, for years. But we got to go to our first one with press passes about 7 months ago, and that was FanX in Salt Lake City.
Okay. Nice.
And actually, my answer should have been the most surreal thing was when we had our in-person interview. Any Kevin Smith fans would be familiar with the Clerks. We actually got to interview Brian O'Halloran and Jeff Anderson, and they were just the sweetest guys in the world.
Oh, I love that.
So they were just so nice. They took time out. We actually got to have a beer with them at the convention.
Really?
Yeah, it was amazing. The interview's on our YouTube. You can watch the interview on our YouTube, and it's wherever you listen to podcasts. But they were just so nice, and we'll still tag Brian and stuff sometimes, and he still likes it and whatnot, and that was amazing. But when we go to the cons, we just try to get as much footage as we can. We'll even do a podcast about it because you get a lot of fun facts. We're big on the fun facts and the backstories, and Rosario Dawson was fantastic at MegaCon, so were so many other people. So we're taking clips, we're writing notes, and then we put all that out there on the podcast and on our YouTube channel and all our social medias.
Sure. So if they have, because I know we met at MegaCon, and I know they had a bunch of little Q&A sessions, so you would attend something like that, take notes, and then kind of, give a summary of that.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
But you got to find that balance because you still want to enjoy it. This is a hobby.
Yeah.
So, but it's been so much fun, and we've met so many amazing people.
Yeah, that's awesome. And then do you have any favorite convention or fan event that you've been to, or it's something that you're, oh my God, I can't believe I get to go here and actually do a press event?
Yeah, I would say FanX was the first one that was a little bit wow, because we got the press passes, and I didn't think that we would, and that's how we were able to interview the Clerks, because you can't ask them for a random interview if you don't have the press pass.
Sure.
And this past one, MegaCon, we actually got to host a Disney trivia, and that was interesting. That was a lot of fun. I hope everybody that attended it had fun, and I learned a lot from it, and hope to do it again next year.
Yeah.
But I would say those were things that was oh wow, we're hosting something at something I usually just attend as a guest. So this is pretty cool. So I would have to say the interview with the Clerks, and then hosting Disney trivia.
Yeah. Have you hosted anything else since then, or do you plan on hosting? Is there something upcoming that you're hosting?
We don't have anything confirmed right now, but I will be at I always go to MegaCon. MegaCon is not happening again until early February next year.
Yes.
and you have to apply for those things. No matter what, I will be there.
Yes.
But as far as hosting, hopefully, yes, we do intend on attending more cons, but we don't have anything set in stone right now.
Okay, gotcha. And as far as like cosplay and dressing up, like what do you feel about that? Like, do you do that when you go to the cons? And
I personally don't, but I love it.
yeah,
I always think like, oh, I should.
yeah.
My kids do.
Oh, really?
Yeah, my 10-year-old dressed as, she had Hello Kitty pants on and a shirt that said I survived my trip to New York, and she was Spider-Man.
I love that.
Yeah, from when Tony took his suit away.
Yeah.
My older one, she's dressed up as Winter Soldier and done stuff. I always love it, and I'm always like, I'm going to do it, and then I don't. But I love taking the pictures with the people, and the cosplayers, we always, you got to ask first to take the picture. But I've got some amazing pictures, and like it's such a talent to be able to create those costumes. So haven't done it, but I absolutely love it.
Yeah. And you talked to me earlier, like you are more of the research side of this. So, you were talking about taking notes and all of that. So can you tell me a little bit more about what goes into researching everything that goes into this podcast?
Well, it's a lot of Google.
Sure, yes.
Well, usually what we do is when the deep research that I will do on an episode will be like, we just did one on Adam Warlock because he's showing up in Guardians of the Galaxy. Mm-hmm. And while we've both read comics, a lot of it you don't remember and a lot of it is deep dives. So I actually have some Marvel encyclopedias.
Oh,
because
wow.
when you're into this stuff, that's what people tend to get you for Christmas if they don't know what to get you.
Yeah.
So I always start at the index, and that's where I start. And then I go to marvel.com, or Wikipedia is a great resource as well.
Okay.
If you're doing Star Wars, yeah.
Okay, cool.
And we've actually had someone from Wikipedia on the podcast before, so that was really, and I told him, I'm like, I use your website regularly.
Yeah.
But I try to make sure it's all from websites that is accurate and factual, and we kind of just do who created them, when was their first comic book appearance, and just kind of general going through it. Because how I fell in love with comic books was as an adult, going to see, Tobey Maguire Spider-Man and Hugh Jackman Wolverine, and being like, I want to know more about these characters and their backstories.
Yeah.
So that's essentially what we're doing. And, sometimes we'll have other comic book creators join us for that, or other podcasters join us for that, or even, just friends that are passionate as well, and they'll come in. Like we did one recently for King the Conqueror.
Yeah.
So that's, it's really just I start with my books, and then I Google, and sometimes I fall down a rabbit hole and spend way too much doing it, but it's fun.
Yeah, it's worth it in the end. You're like, oh, now I know more.
Yeah.
That kind of, because you mentioned like you kind of fell in love with it as an adult. So were you like a nerdy kid? Did you love the comic books, the like franchises, or was it something you learned to love later in life?
It was something I learned to love later in life.
Okay.
The Spider-Man comics, or movies, the trilogy, Sam Raimi trilogy, came out right after I graduated from high school. Mm-hmm. So that's honestly when my love for superheroes and started. And Star Wars didn't start. I'm a bandwagon fan there.
Yeah.
It was when Hollywood Studios changed the whole park, and I was like,
no way, really?
I gotta get into these movies if I want to enjoy this park. And next thing I know, I'm reading the books and watching the cartoons.
And you're like, why was I missing this? Like, yeah. Speaking of Sam Raimi, did you see him at MegaCon?
I did.
Okay. So how was that as like, oh my God, you started my fan journey? Like
that was awesome. He didn't allow pictures or video, but I did take notes for that. And so I discussed that we did a podcast about MegaCon. And he was such a nice guy, and it was really, because he talked a lot about his horror stuff.
Yes.
But he did talk about Spider-Man, and listening to him talk about trying to film the first Spider-Man movies, where he's like, well, I need animators and I need this and that, and he had to like fight to get the things he needed to make these movies happen.
Yeah.
And then when he showed up for Doctor Strange, he's like, I need this and that and that. They're like, oh, you're getting more than that.
Like of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to see like how much of that did he lay the groundwork for these movies in the MCU today.
Sure.
So that was a fun one. And
speaking of the MCU, like things are always going on, always changing. Can you talk to me a little bit about, you had mentioned Guardians of the Galaxy, you have things, is there anything that you guys are talking about in the podcast as far as the MCU goes, like recently or coming up?
Basically, anytime something new comes up, we try to do an episode about it or right before. We've already done our Adam Warlock one, like I mentioned. Secret Invasion comes out this summer, so we're going to do one on some of the characters for Secret Invasion. Nice. So pretty much it's safe to say any Disney Plus or movie that comes out, we're going to do a deep dive on somebody.
I love that.
So, and usually it's not on the main characters because we know them so much. Like we like to go into the characters we don't really know anything about, or the average person, I should say, doesn't really know anything about.
Sure, yeah. Yeah, because you know your superheroes and you know everyone ancillary to them, but it's hard to know the secondary circle.
And they're pulling so deep in from these comics these days too, so yeah.
Which is smart on them, you know, because everyone wants to know more about the side character, because they're interesting, yeah. Do you have like a personal favorite character or even favorite franchise?
My personal favorite character is 100% Wolverine. I named my son Logan.
Did you? Okay, nice.
Hugh Jackman as Wolverine is what made me fall in love with all of it. And it was funny then starting to read the comics. I'm like, this guy's 5'3", and Hugh Jackman is not. And but he's my all-time favorite. I love him in the comics. I love him on the screen. I cannot wait to see him back in the MCU.
I love it.
And I would say the franchise is the MCU is truly what I felt. I mean, I saw the first Iron Man at midnight in the theaters, so it's and I'll be there to see Guardians of the Galaxy. I'll be there Friday though, not Thursday, because Thursday's May the 4th.
Oh yeah, exactly. You have prior obligations. Exactly. Yeah, Star Wars and then MCU.
I had to balance it out. I wasn't sure what to do.
Yeah, and then as far as you had mentioned like for Disney especially, like you can get involved in the Star Wars things. Like, what's it like to live in Orlando and kind of bring the podcast more on location? Because a lot of people, Disney World is their dream to go to, and they love the MCU, they love Star Wars, but they might not have access to it. So what's that like, getting to show people like, hey, this is all that's going on?
It's let's just say my co-host is none too pleased a lot of times. So I was like, I'm in Galaxy's Edge right now.
He's like, okay, well,
yeah,
I quit.
Right.
Yeah.
He's like, of course you are. It's a lot of fun. It really is. And, I get some great content with it. I mean, most of the time I'm with my kids, so I'm paying more attention to them than anything else. But, I get the kids little lightsabers, and they love just playing with them in front of the Millennium Falcon. We're definitely spoiled.
I love that.
I took them out to Disneyland, though, recently, and, they have a lot of the MCU stuff we don't have. So that was fun to visit it as a tourist.
Yeah.
But I genuinely love going back to Disney World when I get home, because there's no stress to get here or do that, or we have to, go on Rise of the Resistance today. It's nice to be relaxed, and we're spoiled living here, 100%.
Yeah.
I mean, I love it. My favorite thing to do is grab a beer at Baseline and people watching Batu.
Yeah.
I mean, that's amazing.
I love that. So do you have any beer recommendations for Disney goers?
Depending on the park you're going to, we could do a whole 2-hour podcast.
Do you have like a short list, or is it like any beer really goes?
Well, I can tell you my favorite spots to get beers. So like at Hollywood Studios, it's definitely Baseline Tap House. It's California themed. I usually go with Sierra Nevada. They'll even do seasonal ones. So that's my favorite one. If you could get into Oga's, you got to get the Bad Motivator IPA, in my opinion.
Ooh,
but that's again Sierra Nevada. If you head over to Animal Kingdom, Animal Kingdom's hit or miss with what they have, where they have it, but I always like getting the Cigar City Maduro Brown.
Okay.
It's fantastic. I've seen it before, right before the Dino Land.
Okay, yeah.
As far as Magic Kingdom, you got to get a reservation.
Yeah.
So I usually go with Skipper Cantina, Skipper Canteen. It's cheaper and easier to get a reservation, and you usually get Old Elephant Foot IPA. And for Epcot, grab a passport.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's like I said before, it's almost always a festival. Parish Brewing is there right now. My favorite beer there right now is Ghost in the Machine Double IPA in America.
Okay.
From Parish Brewing. That one's fantastic.
Nice. So are you more of an IPA girl, or?
Yeah.
Okay. I figured based on those answers, I'm like, okay, IPA.
Yeah.
And then what about like breweries around Central Florida? You've been to a lot of them. Obviously, it's hard to say, but do you have any particular favorites that stand out?
Yeah. There's so many good ones. I mean, Tactical is a great one. They seem to nail every style. Ellipsis does some fantastic IPAs. Deadwood's does some great classic styles. Broken Strings, you ever go to a soccer game, you got to go to Broken Strings first.
So true, yeah. It's right there, yeah.
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 And then you have that Barley Row right on Virginia, where you got 1010 and Ivanhoe and GB in between it and everything. If you want to do a bunch in one day, I recommend checking out the Orlando Ale Line. It's like $15. And it's a hop-on, hop-off bus. You hop on, hop off wherever you want, and it stops at quite a few awesome places like Hourglass, Deadwood's, Ivanhoe, and you can't go wrong with that.
Okay, nice. And what about, so I hate to make this confession, but I'm not too much of a beer gal. I'm like if I have a beer, it's like a light beer. So what would you recommend for people like me who are not as hardcore?
Because, I do have friends that aren't super into it, or like my stepmom, my dad and I love the beer, my stepmom doesn't.
Yeah.
But a lot of these breweries now are offering wine, they're offering cider, they're offering craft sodas, and they're even offering some of them non-alcoholics.
Yeah,
so
sure.
Just, ask like, hey, what else do you have? Plus, a lot of people who don't like beer tend to like maybe a fruited sour.
Sure, yes.
So also, ask the beer tenders for a taste. As long as they're not slammed and you're not asking for 50 tastes, they're happy to help.
Yeah,
and
I love that.
Every local, they know their stuff.
Yeah.
And they want you to like the beer.
Yeah.
So I would say, just ask what else they have.
I love that. And then have you ever collaborated, because you said sometimes they have like nerdy things on the cans, have you ever interviewed one of them and kind of did a like Hops Geek News takeover with them?
We did do one with some friends out in Tennessee. So because we all met online, the first time the three of us, Jeremy who runs Hops News, and then Matt and I met in person, the three of us was at a brewery in Spring Hill, Tennessee.
Okay.
And it was one of the guys who started the brewery was a Patreon. And so we all flew out there, we had a bottle share at the brewery, and the next day we got to brew a beer together. That's awesome. So it was like a serial killer porter, and we dumped so much cereal in that thing. It was so much fun.
I love that.
But that was pretty cool. That was our only, I would say, legit collab, because with all of us being all over the country.
It's hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that was a lot of fun.
Nice. And have you ever brewed your own beer?
Oh, I have.
Oh, have you? Okay.
I did a Mr. Beer kit years ago. That was drinkable. And then one of my first COVID projects was I brewed my own beer and I drain poured it. It was so bad.
Oh, no. But the first one was drinkable, you said?
Yeah, but it was Mr. Beer kit. You can't mess it up. It's like ready to bake cookies.
Oh, nice. Okay, yeah. So you're like, if I mess this up, I know I can't do it. Yeah.
I do need to do it again. And every brewer is like, you just got to try again. I've done collabs with when Castle Church was around, we did, because I'm one of the women who runs Girls Pine Out.
Okay.
So we brewed a beer with them. I've set in on a Design Build Brewing. They're a brewery that hasn't opened yet, but their beer's fantastic. I've got to sit with them when they brewed some beer before.
That's awesome.
Keep an ear out for them. Once they have a location, every beer I've had from them has been amazing.
Really?
Their stouts are fantastic. And they sometimes do collabs with Ellipsis Brewing over by the airport.
Okay, yeah.
So yeah, they were awesome. So I've gotten to sit in and watch, and I know the process, but knowing and doing are very different things.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. So you're like, I'll just drink for now. And hope it.
Oh, you want me to just pour it in? Just tell me when.
Yeah, exactly. I can do that. Awesome. Well, those were kind of all the questions I had. I don't know if you had anything else you wanted to add. Like, for instance, where can people kind of keep tabs with Hops News and Hops Geeks News, and where can they watch new episodes?
So anything Hops Geek News, we're all over social media. Just put that in where you listen to podcasts, and that will show up. If you Google us, our website comes up, which is connected to Hops News. And that's really it. Just search Hops Geek News. If you want beer-specific stuff to Orlando, you can find me on The Hoppy Mommy on social media. Yeah. And that's pretty much it. It's if you just Google Hops Geek News, all of our stuff comes up.
I love that.